Hare Krishna.
So, Hare Krishna, Blues Matajis. Welcome all of you to this morning Bhagavad Gita session. So, let us start by taking the blessings of Jagannath Baldeswara Mai ki jai. Om Gyanjamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirushesh Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we'll be discussing from 8th chapter, Attaining the Supreme, verse number 3. So let us recite the verse. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavadhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavudbhava Karo Visarga Karma Samhitaha. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavodhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhava Karo Visarga Karma Samhitaha. Translation by Divine Rishya Prabhupada ki jai. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and its eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activities. So let us see and try to learn what we can from this verse. See, Arjuna, the first two verses, first and second verse of this chapter, is asking 8 questions in 8.1 and 8.2. In 8.1, Arjuna inquired, "Oh my Lord, oh Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods?" So 5 questions in the first verse. Please explain this to me. In the second verse, who is the Lord of sacrifice? And how does he live in the body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So 3 in the second verse, totally 8 questions. And Krishna, he answers the first 7 questions from in 8.3 and 8.4. So let's see just like a summary. The first one is, he was asking about Brahman. Brahman, that is spirit. Brahman spirit is indestructible living entity. The second is Adhyatma, control of the body. Eternal nature, the self, to serve the Supreme. Third is karma, that is work of fruitive activities. So activities that which generates a material body for the living entity, that is karma. The fourth is adhibhuta, that is material manifestation, that is a constantly changing physical world. The fifth is adideva, the supreme demigod, the universal form, which includes all the demigods and the different planets. And the sixth is adi yajna, the enjoyer of sacrifice. So the Paramatma in every embodied being, is Krishna himself. And the seventh is, where does Adi Yajna reside? He resides in the heart of all. And the eighth question is, how to remember Krishna at the time of death? So the answer to the eighth question is the main subject matter of this chapter, 8th chapter. See, in the current verse, 8.3 verse, just point by point. The first was in the purport, so they just taken out the points from there. First point is living entity and supreme Lord. See, the living entity is called Brahman because it is eternal and indestructible. Therefore, it is same in quality as the Lord. But the Lord is differentiated by referring to as Parabrahman. The second is difference between material consciousness and spiritual consciousness. What is material consciousness? Material consciousness is trying to lord our material nature. And by doing so, it results in karma. And karma means different bodies. So such consciousness results in generating karma. Karma is the varied creation of material bodies by the force of material consciousness. And spiritual consciousness is to serve the Supreme Lord. The third is, in the purport, there is said, living entity is called marginal entity. Why is living entity called a marginal entity? Why? Because the living entity sometimes identifies with matter. And the living entity sometimes identifies with the superior nature. When he identifies himself with the superior nature, then he has only one spiritual body. So the fourth point is what happens when the living entity identifies with matter. If he identifies with superior nature, then he has only one spiritual body, right? But when he living entity identifies with matter, then he takes any one of the 84 lakh species of bodies. So the basis of transmigration is karma. And for the elevation to heavenly planets, he performs yajna. So in the purport of 8.3, I think the third or fourth paragraph, Rupa says, in the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. And when the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends. See, once it goes to heavenly planets, once auspiciousness, whatever pious activities for going to the heavenly planets, when that sacrifice, merit of sacrifice is exhausted, it has to come back to the earth. So when the living entity descends to the earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains. And the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman. And thus the living entity once again attains a human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. So beautifully it is given by Prabhupada, right? It descends into the earth after the exhaustion. The living entity descends to the earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains. And the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman. And thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice and so repeat the same cycle. So in this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The fifth point was, so that is the sacrifice of the living entity. Whereas the Krishna conscious viewpoint is, the Krishna conscious devotee avoids such sacrifices. So what does he do? He takes direct Krishna consciousness and go back to Godhead. The sixth is, this verse, 8.3 verse, it refutes the impersonal commentators who say Brahman takes the form of the jiva in the material world. They misunderstand the Bhagavad Gita 15.7 verse, Mame Vamsho Jiva Loke. See, the living entity is an eternal individual supported by two references. First is Bhagavad Gita 15.7, where Krishna says, living entity is an eternal fragmental part and parcel of myself. Mame Vamsho Jiva Loke. And Vedic literatures refer, which distinguishes between Brahman from Parabrahman. And Supreme Lord Krishna is Achyuta. He never falls. But a Jiva, he may fall down. So, these 8 questions are the subject matter of knowledge. Brahman means the biggest. So, our Vaishnava philosophy, biggest means Krishna. Because he is the richest, he is the strongest, he is the wisest, he is the most beautiful. So, in this way, he is the biggest. See, we also calculate, if anyone is very rich, we consider he is the biggest man in the society. But nobody can hold all the riches of the world. Krishna can hold. Krishna has got all the riches of the world. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, 5.29 verse, it says in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I am the Maheshwaram, the supreme owner of all the planets. So actually, Krishna is Param Brahman. He is not only Brahman, but Param Brahman. So that is accepted. Now, Arjuna was asking the first question, Kim Adhyatmam? Atma means this body. Atma means this self. Atma means the mind. That's why he's asking questions, right? So Arjuna is asking, what is the real meaning of Atma? Atma means the soul. You are also Atma, I am also Atma. Every one of us, the minute particle, part and parcel of Krishna. Now, karma is what speaks about karma. No? Karma means to work. That is material. Working is required in the material world. Please understand, working is required in the material world. Without working, you cannot get anything. And see, here you have to maintain your body and soul together. Therefore, you have to work. So, work can be divided in different ways, but one has to work. One may work as a Brahmana, one may work as a Kshatriya, one may work as a Vaishya or a Shudra. So, work is there. Now, you to understand, the opposite of it is without working, without any endeavor. Yes, you can do without working, without any endeavor. You can live eternally. That is Vaikuntha Loka. Vaikuntha means without any anxiety. And here we are full of anxieties. Kunta. But that is Vaikuntha without any anxiety. So Arjuna wanted to know from Krishna, right? So Krishna, he has accepted Krishna as the spiritual master. And spiritual master means the authority. See, we do not die even after the destruction of this body. So we are Brahman. Brahman means indestructible and eternal. See, matter is not eternal. Huh? Therefore, two things are to be understood about Brahman. That is indestructible and eternal. See, we are all Brahman, but we are part and parcel of the Brahman. Now, here it is said that Param Brahman. So, Supreme Brahman, that is Krishna. So, Supreme Brahman means one who does not come into this material contamination. He is called Supreme Brahman. The impersonal school, they do not distinguish between these two Brahmans. They say Brahman is one. This individual Brahman, this conception of individual Brahman is Maya, illusion. So this is what the impersonals, they say. But according to Vaishnava philosophy, they do not accept this. Their question is, if Brahman is supreme, the impersonalists say, if the Brahman is supreme, then how he comes in contact with Maya? A supreme cannot be under the subordination. If something is under subordination, he cannot be supreme. So that is their argument. And for the Brahman who comes under the clutches of material energy, that Brahman is not supreme Brahman. That's what the impersonalists say. But in Upanishad, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chitananam, the Supreme Lord is eternal. And the living beings are also eternal. The Supreme Lord is cognizant and the living entities are beings are also cognizant. The difference is that the Supreme Lord is supplying all the necessities of life for the many other living entities. This we have to understand. See, the purport of 8th canto, 23rd chapter, 10th verse in Bhagavatam, it says, Karma Bandha, the bondage of fruitive activities. That is the repetition of birth and death. See, one performs fruitive activities in such a way that he creates another body for his next life. So as long as one is attached to fruitive activities, he must accept another material body. So this repeated acceptance of material bodies is called samsara bandhana. And to stop this, the devotee is advised to see the Supreme Lord constantly. That's why a neophyte devotee, Kanishta Adhikari, is therefore advised to visit the temple every day and see the form of the Lord regularly. Thereby, the neophyte devotee can be freed from the bondage of fruitive activities. That's why having deity worship, just having the darshan day in, day out. If you're not gone to the temple, at home only, darshan, getting up for Mangalati, just having that darshan, it frees you from the bondage of fruitive activities. See, the Supreme Lord enters the material cosmos and causes creation, maintenance, and destruction in their due course. Whereas the part and parcel living entity enters the material elements and has his material body created for him. So the difference between the living entity and the Lord is that the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and has the tendency to be overcome by the interactions of the material qualities. Now, Krishna, the Parabrahman, or the Supreme Brahman, being always situated in full knowledge, is never overcome by such activities. Therefore, Krishna is called Achyuta, meaning he who never falls down. So, Krishna's knowledge of his spiritual identity is never overcome by material action. Whereas minute part and parcel living entities are prone to forget their spiritual identity due to material action. So the individual living entities, they are eternally part and parcel of Krishna. Minute sparks of the original fire, Krishna. So as sparks are prone to be extinguished, but not the blazing fire. So the living entities can be overcome by material activities, whereas Krishna never can. So finally, how to remember Krishna 24 hours? So that is the greatest process of yoga perfection. In the 6.47 verse of Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam api sarvesham mad gadenantar atmana. Mad gadenantar atmana means always thinking of me. He is the first class yogi. So Prabhupada says in one of the lectures, so this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is so nice. We were chanting right just now before the class. So this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is so nice that as soon as you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you immediately remember Krishna. So you go on chanting, that means remembering. So in chanting, if there is death, I'm remembering Krishna. So what is my fear? I go to Krishna, back to home, back to Godhead. So it is so nice. So always be engaged in Krishna consciousness. Chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Then you are sure and safe, not only in this life, but also you are going back home, back to Godhead. It is such a nice thing, right? So thank you very much, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Parimanandi. Hare Hare Gaur. Anybody has any questions or anything to share, any takeaways, can go. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Dandot Pranam.